Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the All-American, the All-Canadian, and, as you'll get to know soon enough, the Knucklehead Whisperer. I present to you Headley, the co-host of the VIP Players Podcast.
Okay.
Good night, sir. Good night, sir.
Yo, in that write-up, you forgot to tell them I'm tall, dark, and handsome too. Probably would. Dude, this is radio. You have, in order for you to sell to that general public who are not sports avid or sports enthusiasts, you got to get that crossover field. You need to get the women listeners. So in that regard, you got to tell them that I could very well be a cousin with Maurice Chestnut.
Yeah, but
you got to put that into the introduction now.
But what does that mean exactly? Maurice Chestnut's was his cousin? What do you mean, with his nephew?
I'm tall, dark, and handsome, just like Maurice Chestnut.
Maurice Chestnut ain't tall.
Oh, well, I am. This person is. You got to get that mental picture in your listener's head.
Listen, I don't want that mental picture in my head. I'll tell you that right now. See, you can get out of here with that.
Either way, they got the image.
I'm not even sure where to begin or how to start this, but these last couple of months have been insane for me, just to kind of comprehend everything. And I won't even start with Headley. I'm going to start with Nigel Ennis, because my last podcast in 2021, I dedicated that show to my best friend in university when I was in university, because he passed away last June. And I had a real hard time with it. You know, a couple of months ago, I went to his first memorial, and it was tough. You know, I actually left it early because, you know, I had a hard time dealing with it. And I even told some of my friends about it the day before the memorial, including Headley himself. And then 24 hours later, after the memorial, no lie, on June 6th, I got the worst news I could have ever received, you know, that my brother, one of my best friends that I've known for over 30 years, has passed away. And like I said, it's still a surreal circumstance. I still can't fathom it. I really can't. Forget for a second what it means to me and my family and his family and our deep, deep community of friends. I'll just tell you what it means to South Shore Ave. When I started this South Shore Ave as a blog in 2013, Headley was one of my biggest supporters. He kept pushing hard for me to continue my path with media, and even helped me guest write or co-write one of my most popular blog posts, which was the 20th anniversary of New York Undercover. It's one that got recognized by the executive producers and creators of the show, and you can still see it in the comments. So when I started a podcast show now, I actually created a second show that we could do together called the VIP Players Podcast to do. Yes, great name, I know. So we did an episode. Then the clip that you hear at the beginning of this episode right now was the first show that we did. But, you know, it didn't work out, mostly because he just wanted to see me go and wanted to see me shine on my own. So, man, the biggest supporter. He was one of my few sounding boards that I had. Anytime I had an idea, even for emergency episodes, he'd hop on it or do everything to try. Even right before he passed, he sent me about 3 or 4 ideas for different guests and was going out of his way to try to get them for me. It's the kind of man he was. He was an important figure to South Shore Ave. Behind the scenes, was always helping me wherever he could. I can't remember where I heard this before, but we all should have that type of friend that will go to the moon with you and for you. And I mean, like, no matter how impossible or crazy your idea or dream might be, you should have that one friend that will look out into the horizon with you and say, this is crazy. How do we get here? Let's go to work. And I'm very blessed to have a few of those. But that guy was that for me. Nothing seemed impossible because nothing is impossible. And I mean nothing. I really mean nothing. That type of energy, that type of personality, that type of mindset is unique. And I don't care what kind of person you are, you keep those people in your life. And I got 30 plus years worth of that. Some people don't even get that for one. So it goes without saying that the South Shore Ave family will feel this. And I've never taken this long between episodes before. It's basically been about 2 months now. But it forced me to take a hiatus for a while just to kind of deal and just get my head right to do this. And it didn't feel right to do my first episode after taking this long off, after Headley's passing especially, and not do what I'm doing right now. So for the regulars that tune in, you get it. I know you get it. And for the ones that don't, listen. Understand that this one is for the South Shore. This is for our community. This is for us. So tune in anyway, stay with us, and ride with me. We're going to honor our brother on this episode and celebrate what he meant to us. There's no blueprint for this type of show, but in this case, I'm more than willing to create one. We're going to start with tributes from some of my South Shore Ave family members and past guests, starting off with Big Brother Curtis. And on the back half of the show, I'm joined by a producer of NPR's Invisibilia, Andrew Mambo, as well as the rest of my South Shore Ave family members, Shawn Adonis and Randall Walter, as we process this tremendous loss, what he meant to us, and so much more than that. South Shore Ave is available wherever you listen to podcasts, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn and Alexa, and Stitcher. Hit the 5 stars for the support. I appreciate you all. And I'm thanking you in advance, especially for the people that's personally reached out to me with the love and the support. It's greatly appreciated, and it's not forgotten. Believe me on that. It's the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio. Thank you. And if you're wondering why I call this episode Headleyish, it's kind of self-explanatory. But then again, it isn't. I'll explain at the end of the show. Let's go.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio.
Headley bent. I think the biggest thing that I'll take from the relationship with Headley that I had, that I was blessed to have, was the amount of interest he had for my family, mainly the kids, mainly their activities, and how interested he was, how involved he was to watch their successes unfold. I would say with Jade, if he couldn't make a race, the races that were at York, he would try to come through. If he couldn't make it, he would always ask me to send a video. He would look at those races and call Jade afterwards and have discussions in regards to, how she finished the race, how her kick was, how, she was famous for not having good starts. So you would always tell her about her starts and how she can improve her starts. I always suggest that she should be running the 400 instead of the 100 hurdles. That was a great thing to watch and listen to. And she took solace in looking forward to those discussions with him. In regards to Jalen, I think he was one of his biggest fans. He always had stats from out of nowhere. I don't know where he got these stats from, but he broke down Jalen's games through stats, and Jalen would laugh and say, like, good Lord, like, Headley has stats before his coaching staff would give it to the team. Headley had breaking down the staff and passed it to me or called Jalen and spoke to him about, his shooting percentages from this point on the court, or, he should be rebounding the ball better, because like just a number of stats he would just throw out at Jalen. And it was impressive just to see, again, someone takes such interest in your kid's life and their successes. And, I know it just wasn't my kids. I know I've heard from others that he did the same with theirs. Secondly, is the amount of interest and love that he had for his kids as a father. They were blessed to have such memories, to have such lasting memories. I know there are going to have lasting memories of Headley being involved in their lives. He would always tell me about, from the STEMS program to Avery's podcast, artistic side, and he was always trying to massage that artistic side in her, and pushing her to do the podcast, pushing her to draw, pushing her to take photography, pushing her to dance, like whatever it was that he thought he can get, an ounce of anything from her, he would try to push, and was so proud to talk about. Avery was his joy. So was Ethan. With Ethan, the STEMS program, the various sports he was pushing him and coaching him through and taking him to, and he started the taekwondo, the tennis. Yeah, I mean, he was just so proud of those kids. I think they're gonna have a lot of memories. I think they're gonna take a lot of memories of Headley with them moving forward, and I hope they continue to strive and become great individuals that he envisioned that they would be. Bent not broken. Bent not broken.
My name is Kevin W., proud member of the South Shore Ave alumni, and I have to say that Headley personified drive, ambition, relentlessness, even in the face of adversity or as ridiculous. Headley represented the why not in a lot of situations. The why not, why can't it be done, why not me, why not you, why not us. He is a man that prided himself in education, prided himself in being a man of many hats, not being pigeonholed or typecast in any way, shape, or form. And I think that he would have been a proud example to show to any and all of our forefathers and the ancestors that their efforts did not go in vain. Being a devoted partner, being a friend, being a significant other, being a father, being an anchor, being a source of encouragement, being a source of ridicule anytime a trade deadline or a trade proposal came up, being just one of the guys, and he had so many characteristics that we could all learn from. I think he possessed quite a few qualities at high levels. That could have been just his own drive, but I think a large part of it is also just showing us that it's also possible. Sometimes some people make it and they don't turn back, and other times people make it and they turn back and they don't forget the people behind them. I think that he was definitely the latter. There are too few people like that in life. And those of us that are fortunate enough to encounter or, have somebody like that in our lives, if you know who I'm talking about, then to me, Headley was one of those people. He will be missed 100%. He will never be forgotten 1,000%.
Okay, what's up, everybody? My name is Jules, aka the Commish. I'm an honorary member of the South Shore Ave. I have plenty of stories that I could share about Headley, but not many G-rated stories. So this is one of my favorite G-rated stories. It's not the funniest, but it demonstrates what type of person Headley is. So what it is that one day he calls me and he says, Jules, I need a huge favor. I need you to help me move something into the garage. I said, okay, cool, no problem. He's like, yeah, okay, so what I need you to do is to go to my sister's house and help her move something out of a truck that's in the back of the truck, and then I need it to be moved into the garage. So his sister lives about 10 minutes away from me, so not far at all. I said, cool, I'll do that. I go, okay, give me 15 minutes. So I get dressed, I go over to his sister's house. I knock on the door. She answers the door, and I tell her, I say, yeah, so Headley called me to come over to help you move something. And she's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing for me to move. There's nothing for you to move, sorry. So I said, what? He just called me. And then she's like, no. So I called back Headley outside his sister's house, and I said, yo, what's going on? And he's like, yeah, sorry. It's coming there now. It's going to be delivered there in another 10 minutes. Actually, Curtis, which is Calvin's older brother, is picking it up, and he will be there. And when he gets there, can you help him move it to the garage? So I say, okay, where are you? He goes, I'm in Montreal. Okay, so you want me to help you move something into the house, and you're not even here? He's like, yeah, if you can, cool, please do this for me, whatever. And I say, okay, all right. So anyhow, I say, okay, so I tell the sister, yeah, so Headley told me to wait here, it's coming. And she's like, this guy is crazy. So she says, okay, cool. So I'm waiting outside. 15 minutes goes by, 20 minutes. I'm literally breaking up my day to come help this guy. And I'm outside just waiting out his sister's house for 20 minutes for Curtis. Finally, Curtis shows up, and I see this he has like one of those pickup trucks. And I see this black pickup truck. I never met this truck before. I don't even know what kind of car he drives, but I can see it coming down the road. And he comes down the road, and he turns and he reverses in. And I look at the back of this pickup truck. And in the back of this pickup truck was like this huge ass dresser, TV, like, I don't know what you call those TV not consoles, but like cabinets where you, like, it's built into the wall. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy getting me into? So Curtis comes out and he goes, yo, I'm sorry, man. Headley just called me to ask me to pick something up. I didn't know what it was. When I saw it, it took me like 40 minutes to put this into the truck. So I'm like, what are we going to do with this? And Curtis is like, I don't know, bro. We just, I guess, have to put this into the garage. And I'm looking at this in the back of this truck, and I'm like, this is going to have to be dismantled, unscrewed. And I'm like, what the f? I look at this, and we both look at it. He's pissed. I'm pissed. And Headley's in Montreal. So we are literally moving items, furniture for him, and he's in Montreal. Anyhow, we ended up moving it into the garage. Took us about maybe 2 hours to unscrew, dismantle, move things. And we had to move things in the garage. Long story short, we ended up using half of our day to help Headley move while he's in Montreal. So like, it may not be like a funny story or whatever, but this is a story that's typical Headley. If you know Headley, he will call you and ask you for a favor. And the favor is something that's like out of the like element of like everyday friendship type favors. It's like a favor to move something. Like I couldn't get over that. The point of this story is that this is the type of guy Headley was. He will call and say, check in and see how you're doing, but then he will ask for something. But him asking for something is because he would do that for you. You know what I'm saying? So like, I didn't really ask him for many things, you know, but when I did, he was always there immediately to be there for me if I needed anything. And he was always there when I wanted him or needed him. But this is just his nature was. He felt like if I was going to be there for you, I should be able to ask you as a friend to do me a favor. But that story, I still can't about that story, about that truck and what we had to unpack and dismantle. I was actually mad. literally mad. It was hot summer day, and he asked me to do a favor, and he misled me to believe it was like some type of like ottoman or something to move in there, but it was like a whole dining room, kitchen room, family room set. And he was in Montreal, and I don't know how he convinced me to do this while he was in Montreal. But that's the story about Headley. There's many stories I have for him, but that's the only story I have that can describe what type of person he was. And that was G-rated. That was clean.
This is Joel Ward, sending some love to my man Headley Bent. May he rest in paradise. Got a lot of memories of my man. I think a couple that stick out to me. Two main ones were, one, our beloved chats about the sport of hockey and how it can be improved and more diverse and inclusive. The passion he had for hockey. And also just his infectious personality. The way he lit up a room was something that I admired. People gravitated to him, he stayed in contact with people that I played with, or whether they're a mentor or not, they always remembered Headley, and, I'd always admired him and just the confidence that he had. And, people obviously gravitated to him, as I said earlier. And, he lit up the room. I think looking back at all the pictures that I had, he was at the center, and he was loved by everybody, and and I really admired him for that. Just the fact that he could mingle with anybody, and regardless of the situation, he had a lot of love for everybody and just cared for people genuinely, and that's what I really remember him the most from our time spent. Headley, I'm gonna miss you, man. I loved our hockey chats and how we can kind of keep improving the game. So I'll see you down the road, my man. Love you.
All right, so my name is Jonathan, and I'm going to get right into it because Headley was a hilariously bold and confident and inspiring individual. And I have a story that really captures that. And it was my first introduction to him. So picture this, Calvin and himself, they're coming to pick me up. And I'm not that familiar with him yet because I had known Calvin before. So I lived in an apartment, and, Calvin's like, well, come downstairs, we're almost there. So I come downstairs and, I'm about to come out the door, and there's an area where, people walk out, and then, you walk out onto the street. Headley drives onto the curb in front of the door, pretty much blocking the door, and actually, announcing himself, honking the car, "What's up, man? Get in!" Like as if he's the Dukes of Hazzard. And I was like, "Who is this guy? This guy's nuts. This guy is bold. This guy is aggressive. This guy." And immediately I liked him. I said, I like this guy. And I hopped in the car, just like Dukes of Hazzard. And I think it was a convertible that they had rented. And they were playing Nas, and it was so timeless. And I felt just being in his presence was so freeing, so liberating. It was as if he knew the world was his, and he was ready to break the rules. Although he played within the rules, he also was able to break them and bend them. And it was very freeing of the mind at that time for me. Very freeing, because I've never seen anybody drive onto the front entrance of a building and pick somebody up and then drive back on the street. And I don't even think he planned it. It just happened naturally. Like, hey man, I'm gonna give you the royal treatment and pick you up at your door. So anyway, that's my funny story. That's my story about Headley, because it really captures his nature, his boldness, his confidence, and his ability to feel that life is in his hands and working for him, and he took charge and embodied those qualities.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is DJ Chris Nice. I got a funny story about my little brother. That's what I call him, my little brother, Mr. Headley Bent. Classic story, man. So this is when my son was maybe about a year old. So my son's in his 20s now, like his early 20s. So this is how far back this goes. So Headley's at my house, as usual. He was always at my house, especially back in those times. And we started play fighting. So in play fighting, I mean, you know, we grew up play fighting rough. You know, I guess Headley didn't realize that. So in the roughness of play fighting, he got cut. But he didn't realize he got cut till I got him in a hold. And when I freed him, he realized he got cut in his forehead. So he was like, "Oh shit, you cut me." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, shit happens. Like it's just a cut. You know, it's a little scratch on the forehead." And I'm not thinking anything of it. So he goes upstairs to, I guess, check it out and stuff. So I'm sitting on the couch. The guy comes back downstairs, maybe about 2 minutes later. He comes back up downstairs. Or maybe 5 minutes later, something like that. And he stands in front of me. So I'm holding my son on the couch. He's in my lap. We're just chilling, watching TV, whatever. He goes, "Yo, you cut me." So I look at him again. I'm like, "Yeah, like, you know, like we're back to that." I'm like, "Yeah, you know, shit happens." He goes, "No, you cut me." And he takes my son off my lap and places him on the couch next to me. So I'm trying to compute this. I'm like, wait, what's this guy doing right now? So he looks at me again and he says it for like the 5th time. "Yo, you cut me." Now he's standing in front of me. So now I'm like, okay, this shit is getting serious. I looked him dead in his eye and I said, "Headley, let me get this straight." I said, "You sure you want to do this, man?" I said, "Because when I get up," I said, "I'm punching for real." And I looked him dead in his eye and I said, "You sure you want to do this?" So I basically gave him an out. And he looked at me, he looked me dead in my eyes, and then he smiled and he was like, all right. And he walked out. And me and him have told that story a couple of times to people. We died laughing, like cracked up, like hard, like every time. And I told him, I said, one of the best times I told that story, we were somewhere. And I told the story, and of course he was there. And somebody said, "Yo, why did you get up and, you know, like rough him up, you know?" And I said, I couldn't. I gave him an out because I said, I love this guy. I said, this guy is like, you know, he's like my little brother. I said, I can't hurt him. I said, there's no way I could hurt him. So I gave him an out. And I said, I love this guy. And I always remember when I said it, Headley looked at me and he smiled because, you know, I pretty much told him in telling my story or our story in front of people, I pretty much told him I love him. You know, and that's one thing I always said, man, I'm so happy. Like he knew. I mean, he knew, but for me to say it, you know, that moment was special because, you know, because now he really knew I loved him. You know, that was like my little brother, man, you know, but classic story that will, you know, I'll always have that story.
Hi, this is Adam Peterson. I'm one of Headley's friends, and we've been really close ever since we were in grade 1. We've been through everything together. So we were elementary school friends, we were high school friends, we were basketball teammates, we were in the talented and gifted program together at Centennial. We were the only 2 athletes in that gifted program. And one of the best guys you could ever meet. Always there for you. Anytime you need someone to talk to, pick up a phone. He's there ready to have those talks. He was there for so many things in my life. He helped me bury my cat when we were in high school. And I still even remember, like one day his mom was coming to pick him up and she goes, "Oh, she knows that we're going to be friends for life. When we get older, we're going to be godfathers to each other's kids." Unfortunately, my kids were never baptized, but luckily his was, and he did select me to be godfather for Avery, which was awesome. Just overall, he's an amazing guy. I'm going to miss him so much. I've missed him incredibly ever since. He's always going to be in my heart, always in my memory. He was an amazing friend. He was an amazing uncle to my daughters. He'd come out and support them, watch them play basketball. He'd always be interested in everything they're doing, making sure they're happy, they're doing well. Same thing with my wife. He's known her since we were in Champlain College together. And he actually met her before I did. So he's actually known my wife longer than I have. They had a class together, but he's just an amazing guy. Like he He's a great friend to so many people. Just one of those guys that, he's got the heart of gold, and he's ready to help whenever he can. He was doing things for all kinds of different causes. Wherever he felt like someone needed help, he put up his hand and he said, "Oh, let me be the one to try to give that helping hand." An amazing guy. Like I said, we've done so many things together. We went skydiving together. That was a little bit of a crazy thing, but we jumped out of a plane. We survived. Something we always said we would never do again, but it was still a cool thing that we did together. And one of the stories I was telling at his service was the first time he dunked on somebody. I was there with him. We were playing some 2-on-2 against these guys in Virginia when we were visiting our friend Samir. And when he threw down that dunk, we just looked at each other, didn't say anything. We knew it was special, but we didn't want to play it up like it's the first time we've ever done this. So we want to make it look like we do this kind of stuff all the time. But as soon as we left that court, we were like talking about that all day. First thing we told Samir when he got back to his house. But he's just an incredible human being, an amazing father, great husband, and he's going to be missed incredibly.
I wanted to have you guys and your brothers on the show today because because a lot of us came up with Headley back in the day, but it's been a little bit of time since his passing. But I wanted to use this space for us to just discuss Headley, and I know my aspect of it. Just when it comes to South Shore Ave, when I started this, it was kind of like a continuation of for where me and Headley kind of left off, because back in, I want to say 2008, 2009, around that time, we were kind of trying to have like a radio show together. So he was doing some producer work on CIUT 89.5 for this lady. I wish I could remember her name right now, but it didn't end up working out. And when I started doing the podcast space, I always started, I wanted the Ave Podcast to be first, and on the low, like I was trying to do a show together with him, right? But being the supporter that he was like he wasn't sure if he wanted to do it, but he was like he wanted to see me win, so he's like, "Yo, focus on building this to where you want to build it." We ran up through a whole bunch of ideas. This is where he was like really supportive in that space, and even up until before he passed, like he sent me at least 3-4 guests that he thought I should go after, and he was actually actively trying to help me get some of them and some of these guests in some of these cases. I always tell people, like, when you're starting a business, if you're trying to make big moves, you always need a Headley on your team, because he's so wired to be resourceful, especially if it involves seeing any of us win. Like, he basically go to war for you in such a passionate and selfless way. So just besides my friendship with him, just for what I'm doing with South Shore Ave, like, he meant a lot to it. Just being like, like a sounding board for myself when I had ideas that I was trying to run by. He always gave me certain ideas, and, always supported, anytime I had a guest or somebody like I interviewed or whatever on the show, he was like always the first one with some feedback, and most of the time it was positive. So for my space, that's where, just on the South Shore side of things, the South Shore Ave side of things, on top of the friendship, this is where, for me, like, the impact is felt. So like I said, I'm using this space to kind of just, like, this is kind of a unique situation for all of us. But I want to use it to, like, just be able to to share what you feel, man. I guess I'll pass the baton to, I'll start with Randall first, and just see where your head's at, after everything's happened, and how you feeling, and just your thoughts on him, and just, everything else.
Yeah, man. I mean, candidly, it's a surreal moment for all of us. I mean, especially for me, I think you captured, in essence, what Headley was like. He was a guy that, as much as he could piss you off at times, he was like your biggest supporter, right? always celebrated, our successes, even down to the point of successes of, even now some of our kids, right? He would randomly call me out of the blue just to talk about AAU basketball, and it's like, how can a guy that has no kid playing ball be so intrigued with what's going on in the AAU realm? But that was Headley, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he genuinely was intrigued, and he genuinely was intrigued to see how the teams I was coaching, how they were doing, and my son. And to me, that's a true kind of measure of a friend, a brother. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's just a very intricate part of my life. I didn't realize how close I was until you sit back and reflect. And I know that you had asked for pictures. I'm like, how come I got so many damn pictures with Headley in my photo album, right? For all you young bucks, used to have photo albums. I don't know who has them anymore, but I had to dig through the crates and look for the Polaroids and the the developed photos to see like all those kind of memories frozen in time. And it was really, really something that brought me back of a lot of great memories of them. A lot of trips we had that I didn't even really realize. I just sit back in retrospect. We've been places together, like from DC to Miami to he came to visit me when I was playing in Maine. He even came down when I was going to prep school in Boston, believe it or not. And
Shit.
We went away for 4th of July one time. There's a lot of trips that I can just ramble off, and you don't even realize it. But that was Headley. I didn't have to talk to Headley every day, but anytime there was a memory of doing something, Headley was. I feel like he was around, and I celebrate that and him.
And what's crazy? I mean, it's funny because even I always say one of my favorite trips that I think we took is when we went to visit him in DC. I think the first time I think we even did a podcast on it about Club Dream, right? That was that whole experience with that. If you remember, Randall, like that was like in itself was like a fun and legendary trip just because of all the jokes and all the mayhem we got into and stuff. But to your point, like there's just all those things. It just forges bonds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it forges bonds, and I think in more ways than one, it's crazy how we each affect each other, right? I can still remember Headley calling me, and telling me when he was going down to US to run track. I mean, at that time in that era, it was a big deal just to go down south. Doesn't matter what division it was, what school it was just you made it, right? And when I went down, he was celebrating my successes, and I know I was candidly trying to help him, just like I was trying to help you. You were trying to play ball too.
Right.
You go down south. We all tried to help each other. But when he went down, he called me. It was like, damn, you did it. Like, and remember, he did it going into his master's degree.
Right.
And it's not like he came out of high school and got recruited. This guy grinded. I didn't even know Headley ran track ever in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they went there, I'm hearing Headley's an all-Canadian track star. What? Headley Bent? The guy that was working at like Foot Locker or whatever he was working at?
Right.
Come on, man. That's a story in itself, man. That is something that you don't hear often, and we don't even talk about often.
Mm-hmm. And he started out late too, like as you said.
Yeah.
Like I mean, he used to run track and stuff in high school, but I think after like grade 10, grade 11, it's funny, but I think this year we had that conversation about how he started with track and stuff, and he was like, you know what, because he was so used to doing a sport, every year in high school, he's like, when he was in college, he was just going to school, he said he didn't feel right, so he's just like, well, let me get into something. Like right. That's basically where that started. You know what I mean? Just to bide his time, and then look how it worked out.
And it's a perfect sport for Headley because it's like an individual contributor sport where what you put in is what you're going to get. And look what happened, right?
Yeah.
He started from the bottom, you know what I mean? It made it, right? Like, literally came out of nowhere, dark horse, he started whooping cats that have been running for years just because he put his nose to the grind and just, went, hard body to get himself in shape and to get those times down and, with his God-given ability, just, worked harder to get where he got. And I'm sure he could have done more.
Yeah.
I'm sure he could have done more with it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Mambo, just to pass the baton to you so far, same thing.
With the track. I mean, yeah, I remember. Just to go on that, I do know that like Headley could have like when he was running in college down in the States, he actually could have been like national level. He went, and I remember him telling me, I think he was just tired. Like the season in the U.S. was so grueling. By the end, he was just too tired to do like the Canadian, championships and stuff. He was right there. I mean, when we were in college, we ran in the same team together. I mean, he was number 2 in the country.
Yeah,
the guy was like, he was a phenom, man. It came to him so naturally, but he worked hard too. And he had fun. We had a lot of fun, man, on track, like trips and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He was also like such a good teammate for the same reasons y'all are pointing out. Like he was always just cheering for everybody. Like, I remember running a race and running and like seeing Headley on the inside, just running along with me, like just like cheering you on and pushing. I hit the wall, so it didn't work out. But Headley was like right there. He's right there to support you afterwards, like everything. He was a great cheerleader, and he would like push you all the time. You can do better. You can do more. He used to like do weights. He and I used to hit the weight room. We were both like 2 like mad skinny dudes trying to hit the weight room.
Yeah.
Like he was the one who would be like, "Hey, put another plate on like let's work harder."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was a hard worker, man, and a legend. And it was always good to have somebody like that on your side, like pushing you.
Shawn, I guess the baton's passed to you for now. What's hello?
Yeah, sorry. Like I was saying, like, Headley was the type, who really pushed himself, really grinded to, really excel at whatever he did, and his interests were so diverse, from school where, back in high school, he was in a talented and gifted student program, and, us being immature kids, we made fun of it, like, oh, look at this nerd and the talented and gifted, but it never fazed him, and it was there that I think he started, where the seed was planted for a lot of the friendships that he kept throughout his life with people that, aren't the stereotypical people that a quote unquote black dude hangs around with, people of all different kinds and like from the tag to soccer to track to basketball to all kind of different things, and to comedy. I remember in CJEP he tried
to man, I forgot about the comedy. This guy's lived many lives. Shawn, please remind me about the comedy, because I remember going to one event and it was terrible.
Oh yeah, that was the one we went to. Like, thing is, he did it in CJEP, right? And I remember his moniker was H. So I'm like, oh, this is gonna be trash. So I went to this was when we were in Champlain. So man, I went to that comedy show just waiting to light him up. Like, Headley, you suck.
Yeah.
I mean, Headley's a lot of things, but I don't know.
Like the supportive bastard you are. But go on.
Well, I mean,
I remember that comedy show. Now you say that.
Yeah, Headley's a lot of things, but I would have never thought a stand-up comedian. You know what I mean? So anyway, so he did that show, and it was surprisingly good. And I was like, wow. And, the crowd loved it. They loved him. It was really entertaining. So, I think that there might have been a little bit of home court advantage there, because we all knew him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it was in his school, and everybody loved him. So he took his act on the road. And I think, man, that might have been that time you were there, Randall, when we went out to go see him perform at a club.
I went to both. I was at both, because I remember the first one I went to. Now you say that, I remember him actually, and it was more like, how these new wave Caribbean comics talk about their parents and being raised by Caribbean parents and all the funny stuff that happens. I thought I thought he did a good job at encompassing that. And,
he did.
And everybody loved it. I didn't even think he had some Haitian jokes because everyone was like bucking shot. But then he put the show on the road and woof.
Yeah, not so good, man. I remember some girl from the crowd started heckling him, and he started arguing back. It just didn't look. It was like grand opening, grand closing. You know what I mean? After that second show, he retired his mic and his comedy notebook. But it's just like he had such a and this is what makes it so sad. Like he had so much of a passion for life, just not intimidated by anything, and not thinking that he couldn't achieve anything. Like sometimes, even to his own detriment, or not detriment, but even to the confusion of others. Headley be the type to get in someone's face and like, what are you talking about? And you look at Headley, look at the guy, and be like, does Headley see what I see? But he was just he didn't think there was anything he couldn't do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and the thing is, it wasn't just that belief in himself, like you said, Randall. It was that belief in others. You know what I mean? Like Headley legitimately believed and supported people, and I don't know where he found the time, or even that sense of genuine interest in so many people. Like everybody has the same story about how he supports their kids. Like, my son and his acting, your son and his, your son Randall and his basketball. You know what I mean? Like I heard another story about how he helped somebody else with their kid and finding them some type of hybrid math basketball type of thing. You know what I mean? And he was just so supportive. Like when my mother, when she was diagnosed with cancer last year, and around the same time when his father was going through health problems, so we bonded on that front. And he never forgot to ask how my mom's doing, and he'd ask me and say, hey, so how when's your mom's next appointment? I'd be like, it's in 3 weeks. 3 weeks come along, and Headley would message me and say, so how'd the appointment go? So the first time I'm like, wow, that was pretty good. But after every other time, and how's her treatment going? How's this? I'm like, Headley, how do you remember these dates? Like, you remember more than some people that are even some family members. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I just go through our messages and see where it is. Like, I'm not as organized as you think. I'll go through our messages and see when you said the next appointment was. And like, again, genuine caring, not lip service, not just saying it to say it, and it's like, it's so sad that, like at the funeral, people said it, and sometimes you go to funerals and, people say certain things and the person and you're like, yeah, he had his moments, but he wasn't as great as you guys are painting him out to be. But Headley was really that, man. Like Headley was really like such a genuine good guy, amazing father, amazing friend, amazing son, amazing husband. It's like he was just such a good dude, man, and it's really just it's surreal. Even talking about it now, it's just like I can't believe the dude is gone.
It's a surreal thing. I think one of the things, the characteristics you forgot to mention is his extreme levels of competition and not wanting to lose. Like his love to debate and argue. And I plan on tagging a few podcast episodes in the description of this episode just to give some examples for people to follow back on to see where he would debate and everything. And like, this guy would love to debate with everyone, but I feel like especially me. I always like to say, like, when it came to me and him, like, it was we kind of balanced each other out a little bit. Like he got a high. I think he used to get a high out of pushing people's buttons. Like people that, like, and God knows, Shawn, you've been through those situations. And I think everybody here at least one time has been on the receiving end of those Charlie Murphy habitual line stepping moments. I like to call it.
Definitely.
I don't even know if you remember this, Shawn, but I remember one time, like, there was a point where me and him used to debate all the time. And I remember, I think you, this is like a long time ago, but you individually, you called each of us, like, on our own, and was like, basically like, yo, you guys good? You sure you guys, is there any beef going on? We're like, no.
I think I do remember that, yeah. Because you guys used to go at it hard sometimes, and I'd be like, holy cow, man. Yeah.
But I mean, but that was him, right? Like, if I, like, for me, I always said, like, if the sky was blue, he would say it's purple and try to argue with me why it's purple. But it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like, I'm just saying, speaking for myself, like, I think we used to kind of balance each other out a lot of times. Like, we came from opposite points of view, but we were similar in a lot of ways. And, it made for some really good times, a lot of arguments, because of that competitiveness and sometimes that ignorance, it would make for some classic stories. It would make for some classic, just some funny stories, whatever the topic could be. It could be whether it's sports. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, if Headley was headstrong on something, like, you were not shaking him off that stoop. And even if he was wrong, he would admit it in silence way after, because he just didn't want to lose.
Headley ain't.
Sorry, was that Randall?
I said Headley was never conceded.
No.
Never.
No, he'll never.
He concede. He concedes secretly to somebody else, but he ain't conceded to you in your face. He'll never let you know.
Never.
And it could be anything, like fantasy football, just whatever it is, man. Like,
man, remember fantasy basketball? He got so entrenched in it that his wife told him he wasn't allowed playing fantasy sports anymore.
Yeah, we've had some funny issues. Like, I remember one time, I think he basically nagged me for weeks about making a trade. And this guy one time called and said it was, he sent me a text like, yo, 911 is an emergency. So I'm like, oh shit. I think I was at a dinner. I'm thinking something's happening, something's wrong. And I called the guy. I'm like, yo, what's up? He's like, yo, you gonna do the trade? I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like, you actually called? Like, I got so bad. And then I remember we made the trade, and by mistake he traded his best player. And Randall, I saw it. I just pressed accept. And he sent me back a text like, yo, I made a mistake. Can you send the player back? And I just went ghost. And this guy lost his mind.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Oh, man, he lost his mind. Like, yo, I remember it was hilarious. Like, the wives were, like, trying to get involved, and I'm like, I'm not answering the phone. It was just, I was always going to trade him back, but I just wanted to see him sweat.
Yeah.
Because I knew how much it bothered him taking an L. So I was like, of course I was always going to trade him back, but I just wanted to just make him sweat for a week until it was like absolutely necessary that he had to get the player back, and then I sent him back. But just those moments of his competitiveness and not wanting to lose, it's legendary. It's legendary. But
I knew he was competitive, but like I feel like the way he came at it with fantasy sports, he suddenly realized like his next level of not just competitiveness, but like pettiness that he would in the game when he would lose. My favorite is how my man would like lose a matchup, and instead of just being like taking his lump, maybe even conceding, be like, all right, man, I was talking a lot of trash, but whatever, good job, like winning, whatever. He would just disappear. Give you nothing, disappear from all chats, all email, everything. And you couldn't find him for like a week, and then he would come back a week later with his classic like switch the subject. Like he'd be like, "Hey, y'all hear about XYZ?" You're like, "Where you been, man?" We talked about no.
Yeah,
man. You would just want to ignore it.
Oh yeah, it didn't happen. Like, what are you talking about? It did. Yeah.
I don't know if you would remember this, Mambo, but I think Randall, you was in this too. Remember when this is way back in the day with like NBA. Remember VGM? Remember when NBA.com had their fantasy league way back in the day?
Yeah.
And he used to have his.
Yeah, I was part of that too. I remember that.
You were part of that too? Okay, yeah. So what we used to do it with this with some of his teammates from Lewis. But I remember those days was hilarious because the trash talking that would go back and forth between like the Montreal, Toronto guys and the guys from the States, not wanting to give up any kind of like foothold on anything. And it's like, yo, anytime you took a tumble, it was like you're getting text messages, the worst phone calls. Oh, it was hilarious. I'll tell a funny story though. Just to show like, and this is where Shawn, where you would say like, yo, if you guys were good. So one of the worst moments, I would say this is one of the worst moments I have playing basketball, but we this is what back at Ryerson we had it was a weekend that we had our games on Friday and Saturday. We lost both the games. Both of them were buzzer beaters, both of them on me. Right? And I don't know how he found out. To this day, actually, I think I kind of know how he found out. The next day, this guy emailed his entire mailing list. He actually found an article. I didn't even know there was an article for it. The guy found an article and sent it to this entire mailing list. I remember people were emailing me from like I didn't talk to from Centennial like 5 years, and they're like, "Oh, Calvin, man, tough break," and I'm like, "What is going on here?" I would see like 100 messages. It was wild, man. I got him back, but it's a story that I can't really share, unfortunately. But I did get him back.
But that's a typical Headley move.
Oh yeah. Once you tripped up, he was there to rub your face in it, and then when he tripped up, he tried to run like hell, so his face don't get rubbed in it.
This classic move is just change the subject.
What's that?
Hey,
oh yeah.
Look at this. Look at anything that happened to like you start cracking jokes on him. He's like, whoa! Look at Randall. Everybody, look at
Yeah.
Oh man, no, but so go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Going forward, I mean, I guess this is a tough question to ask. I only really have like one question, and I guess we kind of touched on it a lot here, but like. What do you think, like, and this is a kind of hard question to ask because it just makes it more final, even though we've already, kind of been through all this in the last month or so. But what do you think his legacy should be?
You know what? I think it was actually your brother, right? That said something that really resonated with me. Okay. Everything we do, we got to do it Headleyish.
Oh, it was me that said that, but go on.
Oh, it was you? Sorry. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I wanted your brother to get some.
Yeah, don't give away my credit.
Yeah, but I think you summed it up the best on that. And maybe it's better. Like I can't remember the whole. I got the gist of it, but I won't want to steal your thunder if you're the one that coined Headleyish. But I would say that really, really resonated with me when I sat back and I was listening and I was like, you know what? It's true. The amount of things that Headley has done to affect others, and it's become reciprocal. Like, you'll say, like, the relationships that we've gained are networks through Headley. Like, the way that he's, with work, we talked about it this whole call, the way that, he was able to check up on people and care in a genuine way. I mean, all those, again, I say it from the beginning. There's a lot of times, and there's stories I don't even want to say on this call, where I'd be like, Headley, you rat bastard, they piss you off. But in the same vein, I have way more stories that I'm like, man, especially as we got older, I think that I really began to admire him more, right? Mm-hmm. In a different respect, not in a, oh man, I a lot of times I find in the Black community, we idolize people that have more money, the fancy cars, nice clothes, the girls, whatever it is, right? Right. But Headley had something that I really admired, and it was looking at things at a different lens. And like we all said, like, checking up on people and genuinely caring about the successes of others. You know, you don't think about it until I got older. I'm like, man, this kid is really annoying with calling me about this AAU. Like, he was bothering me to start a prep school in Montreal, and he genuinely wanted to. And we could sit here and laugh about it, but the dude generally was like bugging me about it. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not gonna work. And he was just like badgering me about it, and that's what I admire about him. And the other thing too is just, you know, even looking at how much he impacted me as a father, right? Like that video almost brought me to tears. Like when he was, even now I'm choking up talking about it. Like when he was teaching his son how to ride a bike, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I would talk to him, on quote unquote fatherly type of things, and he would say like he had his son and daughter into like things. I would be like, yeah, right. I'm not putting my son in no, robotics camp or something like that. Like, and that was like my son's a little bit older than his, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fairly older, right? But in retrospect, like I'm now looking to put my daughter into that, who's they're around the age of his kids, right? Like those are things that I would have never thought about. Like, and Shawn touched on it, even about the whole tag thing. Like, like you look at some of the people back in the day he would hang with, and you're like, man, this guy hangs with some weirdos. But in the retrospect, some of these weirdos are the type of people I want to be close to now, right? And just because they were more successful in certain attributes of their life. And I look at Headley as that bridge, right? So,
yeah. What about you, Shawn?
That's a real difficult question to answer, man. I think his legacy is the impact he had on so many people, the lives he touched. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many lives that he touched. It's like even after he passed, I would talk to a few people that I bumped into him randomly and said he passed, and they said, "Oh yeah, I heard," and he was in town, and I bumped into him, and then we went out for a drink, or he was in town, and I bumped into him, and then we went to go eat at a restaurant, like, and he was just such a genuine guy, and it was like he just. I think his legacy is the lives he's touched, man. Like, I think if we can all, look at our lives, as we reach the end and realize we've touched as many lives as Headley, then, you've lived a good life. And, in such a short time, 45, he experienced so much. He accomplished so much, and he touched, like I said, so many lives, and I think that's what I would say is his legacy.
Yeah, Mambo.
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo what all y'all said. I think Headley was like one of the most charismatic people I ever met, and he was the type of person who, when you were kind of in his space with him, you felt special, like he made everybody feel special. You felt like it was all about you. He had this way of like pulling people in and just making anybody that was around him kind of feel seen and heard and special. And like he was super inquisitive. What are you doing? Like he just want to know everything about you, and that like has an impact and that touched people. And so he traveled, he lived in different places, like. He's impacted so many people all over the place. Like people will never even know who came across him and will just like have a memory of him. I mean, he's the person that like, when he came to visit me in places or whatever, people talk about that guy. Oh, they might not even remember his name, but they're like, oh, your friend, the tall, like, that tall slim guy, man. How's he doing? It's like he just made an impact on people, and so I think like there's elements of his legacy that are literally scattered around the world, and then kind of like a legacy that lives on, and obviously his family and his friends and all the people that knew him, and I think want to carry on and try to like live on some of the better parts of who Headley was, and like
be a better person ourselves.
Yeah, and it's I guess the positive I take from I guess these moments is like it definitely had me reconnect with some people, and they know who they are, and I'm gratefully appreciative. I wish it was under better circumstances, but the fact that at least with some people we're back in each other's lives, I think that's amazing. I'm still, just to be honest, like I'm still grieving through this, as I guess we all are. Losing my brother, this really hurts, and I'm up and down a lot of days, and I know for a lot of our friends, especially in Toronto and back in Montreal, like I think in some ways, I've mentioned this before, like we may have to start leaning on each other just through chats and check-ins and visits, whatever, and I don't think this is the type of loss that you get over. Like, Headley's irreplaceable, but I think how, like, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, but like, in terms of his legacy, the way I look at it is to add to everything what you guys are saying, like, however I move forward, because I'm not sure what this is going to look like. I know I just want to do it in a positive way with positive energy, and I really don't know what that's going to look like, but I just want to move in a positive manner, tighten up certain things in my life, be open to a lot more things, and just be diligent in how I use my energy. Like, it's cliche, that term, these things really put things in perspective, but I would say, not to say like, I'm not even out of this yet, because I think a lot of us aren't, but like, I feel really appreciative about life right now, because I know for myself, you take for granted sometimes how much our lives are like intertwined with each other until moments like this happen, right? And getting reflective on that, like, I look at some of my biggest moments in my life and my family's life, like, this guy was present. And to touch on what you're saying, Randall, about the conversation that I was having with one of my friends, and we were talking about being like Headleyish, and I think those are the things that I personally hope that for people that knew him and that loved him, I hope they also carry that as part of his legacy. Don't be afraid to be open to new ideas, new things, and it could be something simple as just, hey, maybe trying to go to a jazz club, like something simple as that. Like, most people don't do that. Like, that's a thing where it's like, hey, let's go post up at a jazz club, and let's try this restaurant. Let's go to this bar. Let's do curling. Like, these are some of the conversations you would have. It's just anything open. Be open to all ideas. Don't be afraid. Never be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid of those moments that could possibly impact your life. Those are just some parts to me of what being Headleyish is all about, So, yeah, like, this is, like I said, this is a tough conversation to have, but I'm glad that you guys hopped on here and did this with me. But, I guess we'll wrap up here. But brothers, again, like, this is tough, man. But thank you, for doing this. I've never had to do a podcast like this before, and I hope I don't have to for a very long time. But I'm glad to do it with you guys, though.
Yeah, no doubt, brother. No doubt. Thank you for putting this together, man. I think it's something that we can listen to later on and appreciate. I even would think that maybe you can even, if it's possible, to tag some of the podcasts that he has been on for us to go back and kind of relive his messaging in his pods, because I know he has some good ones. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's in the works, so that definitely will be done. I definitely will do that. So, yeah, for sure, I definitely will be doing that. About a week ago into his passing, I was having a conversation about his life with a friend of mine, and we started to discuss the need to be more bold, to move with less fear, to be open and try new things, anything, especially if it's to enhance who you are. We ended up calling it Headleyish, because those were some of his best qualities, and it's his gift that needs to be shared with everyone. Implementing that mindset into your life, even if it's just for a little bit, is freeing. I used to watch him exhibit all of those qualities almost on a regular basis, and you start to realize that we all have those qualities. But for whatever reason, people park that away due to their inner fears. And then sometimes the routines of life just get in your way. And we all know how it is, but we all have that in us to break out of the box and move with great confidence. And you don't have to be that way all the time, but when you're around people like that, you realize it's more than fine just to sprinkle some of that into your lives. While I continue to process this all, I can tell you that it's one of the things that I'll continue to carry on forever. And whether you knew him or not, I hope all of you do the same as well. Headleyish. There it is. Thank you for tuning into the Ave Podcast. And thank you for all of the people who took their time to participate in this episode. Thank you to Shawn Adonis, Randall Walter, Andrew Mambo, the rest of my South Shore Ave family members, Big Brother Curtis, Kevin W., Jules of Commish, author Jonathan Boxill, former NHL vet and assistant coach of the Henderson Silver Knights, Joel Ward, DJ Chris Nice, and Adam Peterson, the owner of Toronto Hoop Stars. Thank you, sincerely, to all of you. And thanks to all of you for listening to this special episode. So much has happened during my hiatus to address, including Caravana. And I thank everyone for all of those who attended my Caravana event, the Sunday afternoon carnival barbecue party. It was very successful this year. We'll be back for year 15 next year. But on the podcast note, I'll be back in about 2 weeks from now with new episodes. The hiatus will be over, including within the next month, the first ever ultimate R&B draft. More details to come. No, it has not been done. And yes, you will want to watch that, especially if you're a lover of R&B. Please believe me. Believe me. Stay tuned for that. Check out my catalog over at southshoreave.com. Once again, that's southshoreave.com for all my past episodes. And you can check out a few of my favorite past episodes that Ave of Headley posted in the description of this episode as well, including the last one I recorded back with him at the beginning of June. Once again, one more time, that's southshoreave.com. And check us out wherever you listen to podcasts. Type in South Shore Ave, and you're good to go. For everyone that participated in this episode today, my name is Cal C. And you just tuned in to another episode of the Ave Podcast on South Shore Ave Radio. My love goes out to all of Headley's loved ones, most importantly, his family, and you all know who you are. Rest in peace to a warrior, a king, a South Shore legend. To Headley Bet, that spirit of yours is infused within South Shore Ave. You're never going to be forgotten here. Love to all of you.